That's the way it's closed.
We should get we should get something for him, you know, a little thing or a box.
The table's further back.
That's good.
My back's to the wall.
Well, we're gonna call, okay. It is 6:02 and I'm going to call our special meeting of the Superior Town Council to order. Roll call, Councilmember Armitage.
Here.
Councilmember Aguilar.
Here.
Councilmember Navarrete.
Here.
Councilmember Estatico. And tonight, Councilmember Lopez and Vice Mayor Alonso have excused absences. If everyone would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And Council, tonight's work session also poses as a public hearing and public open house on our Queen Creek Greenway concept plan. As you are aware, this is an adoption or creating some checklists and to-dos around the 1999 Queen Creek Riparian Restoration Plan. I think at this point, Council, if you have specific questions on this project, it's a good time to ask staff. If not, then I'm going to send the meeting into just like open public, open house, but this is the time. If you have questions for staff on this particular project, now's the time to ask.
Timeline?
Timeline is dependent on getting funding. So
How much money?
that's still to be determined. There is no engineering estimate on this yet. My guess is it's going to be at least $250,000, not counting the water. This is one of the items that's in our comment letter. Putting the water back in the creek kind of makes this possible. We pushed this forward to make sure we had a good plan to put in our comment letter, so that we could get the water put back in the creek. If it's part of the 404 permit, then the resolution will be doing that at the beginning of the project rather than later, but it still would be determined when that would be.
You know what's funny is my first year in Superior 23 years ago, the teacher, they took us over at the St. Mary's Center, and Chris Zapata was our town manager, and that was the plan 23 years ago. Put water back in the creek and have a walkway, trailway, riparian area, and I'm glad to see that it's in sight anyways.
And that's where we got it, was Manager Zapata's plan. The 98 study it had a lot of detail work and like an EA around it, so it's got the environmental assessments about doing the work, so it's pretty close to ready to build, if we can come up with ready to build.
And I had the opportunity to speak with Mr. Zapata probably a few weeks ago. He had reached out and he had told me an interesting story about how they came up with the ideas that they were, and he had happened to be spending some time with my dad, the time my dad was on the council. They were drinking some Coors Light beers and saw the shadow of the mountains and the river coming down, and they said, you know, that could be Superior, and we should figure out how to emulate that or redo it or to fix this issue in the creek. And so he gave me a lot of insight as to what they were thinking, and it was kind of some nice times to reminisce with him. But he's very supportive and happy to see that we've taken this plan and are moving it in a direction that some bite-sized chunks on it. So it's very exciting. I think if council has any further questions, we wanted to leave this as open as possible. We did notify, for the record, we notified residents within 300 feet of the creek from the Magma Club to Stone Avenue, because that's where the main part of the project right now is our focus. And we did have 2 public hearings. We had a morning meeting where we had some residents come out, and then we had an evening meeting where we had more business owners and residents, a little bit more open discussion on that. And I think a lot of people that normally attend this might be busy getting ready for borough races tonight, so we might not have as much of a turnout for our council meeting tonight, but the public response has been good.
Is there anybody against it? yes?
We haven't had anybody who's really been against it. Some questions about, how is the water gonna come? Where are we gonna find the water? And again, some of those relate back to mine plan of operations and mitigations around water with the DEIS. Those are some critical things. We did learn that when the town had originally proposed this project, that the Arboretum at that time had threatened to sue the town, because they feel that our waste, at that time, the leadership there was that our wastewater treatment plant waters are adjudicated to them. They have right to use it. And so that's what, in talking to Mr. Zapata, he said that's why, and Todd we never could figure out why there was this gap on the numbers as to how much flow we really have, and that was the compromise, that anything over this certain amount is to go down the creek to the Arboretum, and anything above that could come back and be put into the upper watershed. So that explained some of that number, and I talked to the director at the Arboretum the other day, and she's like, oh, I guess that makes sense. I don't know. The people that wanted to sue the town then aren't even at the Arboretum anymore, so.
They don't have a right to water, do they?
As far as I know, the surface right has not been adjudicated, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it hasn't been. Water rights are a rat's nest of laws, and they are all currently being re-adjudicated, so I don't know. You'd have to hire a water attorney and have them research it.
All right. Any other questions, comments, anything from the public, questions or comments on this particular project?
Well, it used to run, it didn't run all the time, but it ran a lot back in the days. And every so often it would trickle down, but a lot of the times we always had some water, and we always had turtles, and we always had frogs and everything in that. I remember as a kid, that's why, but that would be nice again for kids to be able to.
It's a lot of the discussion in the 98 study talks about the tunnels and the workings put under the creek, in Fraction Creek. And so all that water goes down into those workings in the ground, is pumped out to Florence right now. So the early discussions with resolution is that water, it doesn't get down into the deep workings, it doesn't get contaminated. It could be pumped right back into the creek. And that's the initial stages of conversation, that's probably where they're going to be pushing us. I don't know that it's enough water. According to the report, it's 150 gallons a minute average with a minimum of 40 gallons a minute, that's maybe a 2-inch pipe, which it's enough water to keep the water flowing in the hard bedrock sections, but I think they need to at least double that. And that's going to be the negotiation point for that extra water.
Mr. Shank?
Yeah, no, I just say to the council, I don't know how much you know about the process of coming up with this, but this went on for how long?
What, our part of the process?
This is the Superior Water and Trails.
Superior Waters and Trails, I think we got that grant almost a year ago now.
We got the grant in September. We were notified that we received the grant in September 2018. We had a preliminary discussion in November to start the work process, what we wanted to do. And then the government shut down, and so we actually got started much later. We didn't get started until March that we started convening meetings. So we've had a very compressed time frame to get all of this work done, and this has all been part of a facilitation grant process with the National Park Service.
And there was pretty wide participation, including people from town and from outside of town that are interested. And I think what I've been most impressed is, I think it's an imaginative, far-reaching thing, but it's based on practicalities of what we can do with either resources we have or that we legitimately think that we can get.
It's a very exciting project and kind of fun to see it all come together. So unless there's any other questions, I am going to excuse everyone from the dais to go and have, I know council's seen a lot of the pictures, but to go up and see them up close and engage with the public. We do have our architects here tonight from GLHN on our multi-gen center, so because it's a little bit informal, if you guys want to chat a little bit. While we're off the dais, that'll be good, but they'll be giving us a formal presentation. I'm sure at 7, we may see more people coming in. So we had to leave it to an hour in case we did get public response. So it was noticed that we were having this meeting.
Well, isn't that morning meeting that you only have about 2 or 3?
Yeah, we had like 4 people at the morning meeting, and the evening meeting, we had a bunch,
And my
so.
sister-in-law went only because she thought there was money involved, so.
No, there's no money. But Councilmember Aguilar brings up a good point that we've been receiving some comments from residents and people that live along Heener Drive and Sonora of investors wanting to buy out people who live on those streets or to make offers on their properties. So the town's been fielding some questions, not that we have anything to do with that, but, we have had some residents asking, what's the concern around this? And there's no real correlation between the two, but there is something going on the real estate market.
Well, I think that, if this project happens, those properties are gonna be more valuable, so that's why you have your investors now.
Yeah, they're looking now.
Yeah.
So.
There's more around that as well, because the letter of map revision resolution has to present, because they changed the waterway, takes most of Keener out of the floodplain. So right now, it's all floodway lots, and it can't really be built. And that's going to change whenever that Lomar gets processed, which could take up to 5 years. But at that point, those properties will go way up in value.
Well, then with that, I will recess everyone from the dais, and you can look or answer your emails or whatever you'd like. We have some time before our next meeting. No, we don't need to end, we can't end the meeting, we're still in a quorum, right? We're having an open house now.
If you end the meeting, the special meeting's over, if someone wants to come in and talk, we can't really do it. I think we're just better off just not to adjourn.
And just recessing.
Yeah, until maybe a 1/4 or 10 or.
Okay, so we're recessed until 6:45.
So, question, you guys have a PowerPoint?
I gotta run out of time.
No. That's good, because I don't have a set. Sure, I just got these on my table right here and then the library at the other end has a whole wall connector and their sink for your sound system. So that's all I was. We have to show you that. That's what you guys actually told us. Yeah.
It's a lot of money.
I've been focusing a lot on. So, an interesting thing came out of the conversation on this. I got a resolution about is the business. But we get presented to me. Okay, we'll give you the full $1.2 million. Well, we're going to get a grant for that.
Next week, 16.
Is that why it was there?
So was done.
I thought they were,
Had,
visiting with governor.
Svetlana, have you done as-built on this building? Catherine?
We have a existing building layout, and I have this map of the bring, I'll send it to you.
Gave us a zero.
Oh, okay, so you can send me a contract. So what program do you use? 2019? Okay. So we're in 2018, I'm asking if it's already a version, I just have to convert it.
We'll go ahead and still scan it because it's a visual record.
How's Adam doing?
Is
that good?
Yeah.
That would be good,
Yeah, he's good.
He's supposed to be getting that one.
I know.
That file is,
Meat on the bones. Yeah, he's
I
good.
wouldn't
He's healthy.
count on the.
Reach up here.
It's all man-made.
We shared with you all the stuff.
Yes, conceptual.
Hey, I'm like, I don't think so.
I am actually, that's
What-
only because the lady who does my
We
hair.
do have a couple big kids,
I
but
had a t-shirt, yeah.
yeah, they're not like tender or anything like that.
I think it's called.
Yeah.
You said we need to do survey, right? I can contact the.
Well, not yet. Elizabeth, they're gonna do that. There's a project managers on the job. They'll figure that out.
Yeah, we've got, I've sent out,
Like how you guys, like would be the best way to give
My hair is really thin, but I've got
Yeah.
quite a bit of it.
Who would be the best person to give money to?
Well, good, I'm glad you joined us today with this public hearing and. Yeah, they'll give a presentation during our regular meeting. Regular session.
And they require that financial.
Zoning?
Come on, come on. It's like this, yes, I'm like, this means. So it's like,
I've put out 2 requests. One I put out earlier was an answer. And so I put out 2 more. If you have somebody else
I do.
who-
We'll go with that. And that's a public hearing, so you'll be able to address us and we have to record it in that part of the decision.
Mila wants me to ask me to volunteer, but I haven't got my assignment yet. So I don't know if I still need a volunteer or not.
We're looking for survey.
I gotta know if I'm spending my, at a checkpoint or am I spending my time at the beer garden?
That's an option.
I was gonna say.
Or you could do it without.
The building itself is.
I know, you had so much going on.
Sort of discussion, prep work, and all that stuff is interesting.
I would assume
Because they were trying, originally they were.
Well, I don't have an assignment at all. So that's, okay.
That's a tough box. That's a lot of fun spots.
Town officials are participating in volunteering for this. Do more than one thing. If they don't,
Well, you're a wonderful person, so thank you. I came in today from the other
I
round,
just,
so I
it's just gonna be the difference of me getting, you know.
What happens?
you don't have to know checks like this. So it's not like,
She has more than one.
they start, the activities.
But, you know, how many other communities? Sure, that's kind of
You know the story about
They got that in-house.
Do they have?
yeah, we have the one for me.
The outside is done.
That doesn't change.
Well, I'm anxious See it all go by like,
Actually, you know what I'll do? I'll sit up and drop down in Arlington.
Jim, did you give Vanessa her duty station? Did you know? No,
I
you
said I
still
don't
have
know.
I have no.
Where were we gonna put Vanessa?
We're gonna put Asia and Josh in the morning at the unnumbered checkpoint at the corner of Sunset and Panther. And then you will relieve them at around 12:30.
Okay, and you know where that is?
And then the vice mayor or I, probably me, will come first and relieve. Well, we'll be with you, when we relieve Asia and Josh.
So the place that she's
Or
talking
Jim,
about
or-
is the corner, it's right, it's the corner of the school parking lot.
The library space.
But now the vice mayor has the job of setting up everybody's tents and getting everything done because he thought he was gonna, he has to go to the mail run for Verge. Yeah, so he's like, I'll do anything, just give me a job. I was like, all right. I was like, because Kathy Melvin and, Joe Heatherly and Marion,
When I first moved here, we were 500 people.
and
Got down to 20.
So like when I go, do I need to take a pop-up, a chair?
no, because we're gonna have the vice mayor set all that stuff up.
Oh, okay, he's going around. That's
So
what
is
I'm
he gonna
thinking.
come to mine?
I'll just go,
I don't know
take
if
the
you
Sylvie, you'll take the radio.
You are number 3, right? So you're there.
Or I'll take it.
Yeah, we'll this is
Well, that's what I was
Golf Course Road here, this goes off. This is,
I'm helping the volunteers, I'm replenishing them.
you go, if you're going towards town, it's to your garden. 200 feet past it, is the trail, the road goes off that way. It's there.
Yeah.
It'll theoretically be mine.
Yeah, just go buy it from the barber shop.
So I'd go down Sunset, make a left on Golf. I'm telling you,
That's the way I,
That's
the way they're gonna be running. They're gonna be coming at you.
There are two
They're gonna be living, coming that way. So they will come out of Camp David and they come out to Golf Course. They run
And so, I was like, well, you are thinking, if she gets, if you find more people, then our people can go out and enjoy it. To be honest, when you're out in the race watching it, that's better than being waiting for one.
But I know from
Yeah, this is a 6 mile.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm sure the kids weren't running the same. She's
I know
got
it
some
was
weird
pretty
turns.
heavy from there, but I turned the air up in my office the other day before I left.
The hood, all that stuff's gonna stay.
Oh,
I love one of the things it says on the list that they don't tell them, if they ask you which way to go,
They're open.
you say, look at your.
I don't know when you're gonna be here.
Because I said,
I want to be there with like one of those billboard signs and whipping it. With how much giving the arrow sign.
but they go through that shit going out, like out, coming back. They go through mine just going out, they go through yours just going out.
did you see Jamil's map for his 100-mile race? I think,
No, I didn't see the map.
so on Monday, Jim, Todd, and myself, and this other guy, Jamil Curry, who I had met through, actually through Carl's daughter a few years ago, and he does all these endurance races, bicycle races out on the trails, and he wants to do a 100-mile endurance race here, starting at the end of February.
So which way was it gonna go? Was it gonna go
It
all the
will
way
be
to
like a big old
North
loop.
Junction?
No, it's gonna be like a big old loop, like almost out to where the wilderness hits, down to the Gila River.
Yeah. It was gonna come up by the Raymart mine.
So how long is it
The 50-mile one? No, ours. Okay, the 12-mile,
because you can get,
That was weird.
Because,
Yeah,
so,
the quick ones take 2
That's
hours.
why I was thinking for commercial kitchen space, and not just because it's
The
just.
winter soil.
Oh my gosh, really?
Then we have to wait for.
And follow their birds.
So the deal is,
It's like the whole range of-
you're supposed to be texting. Well,
My
those
original
are the
concept
range.
is
Not everybody's gonna do it. There's like 65 or something, but about 30 of them are doing 12. Maybe 10 or 15 are gonna be really quick, and there's gonna be some that are gonna do it 4 hours. 5 will take each a day. Well, the foot race that Neil is talking about, we're going, how long? And they go, oh, it's like 30 hours.
36 hours, and you have to run.
They run in the night? It's like, are you freaking kidding me?
See, so like you don't stop.
That's like, but those are for those extreme endurance. People come from all over the world to run. This is not for us. This is not for us.
Yeah, I'd be out there,
Well, maybe
okay, I'm running. We got a lot of coyotes.
Sonia's husband did one of those rack car races where it's like a relay and they ran throughout. Because all the teams get costumes. And so they did, their team was naked and brave, and so they ran in these
We want to participate in this thing.
And fall back to this building is it's
Not only the illusion, ridiculous.
Oh my gosh, their pictures were hilarious, but they have a team and they have a band, and so somebody runs for 5 miles or 10 miles or whatever, and the band, the next person jumps out and starts running.
I'll run for 500 feet.
Yeah, they have a ton of money, it's a big old party.
Well, that's the thing.
like perimeter walls are 90-stick walls.
I've had a couple of friends that have done rack
So.
Steve can do it. We'll sponsor you, Steve. The Lost will sponsor
Randy
you.
Snow, and Randy Snow.
Hey, we used to remember
It was done back in the day.
the, back in the days,
Well, now you,
we used to go here.
yeah, but now you can
This is weird that not like, you know, but it did snow. Every year we have snow.
The last few years that we've had snow.
No,
this
but what
last
I'm
year-
saying is, but when we were kids in school, and all that, every year it snowed. You know, there was about a 3 day.
Probably didn't make that. There wasn't a lot.
That's why I used to, that's what Tony was, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
you walked in the snow.
Uphill both ways.
Yeah, and then little did they know.
I haven't been able to find you guys. This building, we'll put a lot
If we're, you know who it was, we can move.
I'll have
We can move, we used to live right there on Ray, next to the Polaris.
It was a full phase two.
It's such a nice venue. It's in the round. Parking is very bad. They've got,
Beyond this age.
so the theater right here, they have parking all on this side, all back here, and all back here. Now, this back here is shared. This is shared with Italian restaurant. There's a street here. This is all parking over here. And then there's a street that runs. Four-story parking area, all so
No,
parking is not free.
it's just information. It was part of our public outreach plan and to make sure we had enough touch points with people, you know.
How much is it? How much is the?
How many days?
And so,
Okay, so.
Okay, it's not gonna be a big
We're not ready.
Yeah, everybody wants a big cake.
They're gonna
Yeah,
We really enjoy it, we love going there. We don't go to, we don't go to a lot of them.
Everybody with no house.
I know, I told Martin, I'm like, look at this, this is the house. And like, yeah, like for
But how many acres?
28 acres.
Wow.
Subdivide that.
Just remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, you need the arboretum on your
Yeah, so
side.
if you're not a good friend with the arboretum,
Indicate our wastewater district.
I remember I checked the book.
They had it on the wall.
Are you doing garlic there? Come on. Oh, your shoes, my mom didn't call it. Or did they go to Portland? Oh, okay, my mom would have come back.
Yeah, there are, we put it up as a,
Jay Leno.
people are ready to.
Yeah, they are. They are. And it's easy to get in, easy to get out. There's restaurants around there, you know, you can walk and drive.
So that's why we
You didn't want to get out and go against the back. Go in there, they have restaurants, they have lounges, you get a drink, go to snack. Yeah, it goes right across the street.
Let me see yours.
Mine?
Bruce is on here like 200 years.
Oh, you want to look at this side?
So I'm noticing that everybody's council has different size, different letters.
That's because,
You get,
well, Vanessa, yours and mine should
large
be the same.
letters and small letters, they get all the same size.
Well, these were
I had
from,
to make mine a little bit smaller because my name
because I
gave me too much.
Yeah, well, it's held up pretty well. No dents.
I'll never do it.
If somebody,
If you're looking at the money you got, the money that's in
you want to go with what everybody else wants, so if you're wrong, you're not going to jail alone.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so what are we checking? So that's the little rule. You got
So, your house is on
So has, they're all signed.
we sent it to Joe.
Ruby's got it right here.
Oh, really? Okay. I can't sign.
Right, it's right here, that's the deal.
Oh, yeah, or are you gonna have a booth or are you gonna just walk around?
Yeah, we usually have that conversation because
Yeah.
small.
I'm just kind of wondering,
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of space they should put this time. I gotta talk to
We
them.
never know.
I will get back with you tomorrow for sure. If there are any issues, yeah, we can have maybe, meet up or something after. That would be like a good, cause I gotta run around and get around with me. Okay, perfect. Then let's, like, it's on, I was mad around. I'm gonna do the welcome at 9, once the race gets started. I can sit and we can walk around.
TV.
All right. Oh, perfect. Just come and watch. The starts on Main Street, ends on the street, so it goes down, around the town, out. Back around. So you're on the 12 miles. Yeah, so it ends all the way around. The other ones are a little shorter.
Waiting on the start. We could actually tag it on.
For the whole other district, 12 miles. Sooner, there's like 3 or 4 o'clock like that. Everybody.
We are,
The slowest runner should be back.
8 months into this, 8 months into the first year.
Perfect. We'll see you then.
That gives me a year and a half.
Why don't we buy the best part? We'll be around, I think that's where I do welcomes and stuff in that area. Or like, somewhere
Well, there's running water.
So that,
Is that when they first, the first year?
that's part of our
Sure you can do that. That's probably Why not? Here's a.
But it would be like the amount of piece of pipe.
That was
Where will
our
that
water,
work?
so take some money.
Our school kids are actually.
We're gonna do a lot of that like ourselves.
Kind of got the idea.
They've done everything.
Yeah, because he said, you know, that's what he had. Yeah.
I think that, this may be the end of the.
I assume we'll have to wait somebody.
I know there's stock.
No.
Yeah.
He wouldn't let us off the hook here when I was fired. And I hadn't.
Year 2 says.
Yeah, because this, aren't you talking about small?
Used. Forever.
Forty-five yet?
We are
We are not.
6:38 and counting.
I was looking for it. I was looking at some of them were here. I don't want to.
It's more about the formulation of doing that.
Go up there with
I will be there on Monday, and I would have been there yesterday. Had an important engagement that I didn't plan. I did not plan. It started off with, it doesn't look good.
Of course, you just, yeah.
The foundation, you have to.
That was
major
I would learn like that. My parents would say, my mom would say,
Facelifts and upgrades.
which was different.
I don't have to make
She
I'll
said something.
feel a lot better about.
Yeah, I could be gone all day long.
Yes, I can put stuff in it.
They
It's
started-
higher.
I think kind of an anthem with
It'll fit in better.
I was born, you know, I'll walk over there.
Certain drawings.
So, that's, if you look at the central panel,
Yeah, you make your own life.
is. So those sort of issues jump up in price.
Oh my gosh. The open house, resolutions, open house in Tempe, it's a packed house.
Once we get these,
Not
to do a lot of
Is that Glen Hammer? I think that's Glen Hammer.
So far, we're, we have.
Yeah, the one in Currituck.
But the one, the one, I never stayed for the first 5 years.
Were there a lot of people in the valley?
It was packed.
It works.
Really all there.
Bruce was there.
If you're pulling up a
But I guess,
Which part do you guys are? That's what we're doing. Welcome out. This is Alan, he's the gentleman I put on the little, running our grant. This is Russ.
I'm learning this. You come right here when I'm sunset.
Yes. He just finished, running a grant for us. Now, right across from,
good average.
There was a gas station.
USDA is very outcome as soon as we want. USDA is happy with Mila presented on his fellowship committee, all the USDA people were there. USDA was all there, and they love her, so we are.
That's all he wants, all he wants is education there.
I don't know what that process was. So I called Rob.
There. Go find him, go find him.
He's gonna be down here.
That's what he said. What, he said that he's down for second grade.
That problem hasn't been there for years.
Gotta be done. That's our core issue, the town has, some people.
You love to have all the children for school this year. Can I have a relocation program, be like, okay, we're going to like town relocation program with here?
So you were here?
It's just one account every line needs to go. We've got
Their grandmother's house.
Hey, Don, you can do that, I cannot.
If I cross that.
You get that story.
Yes. Oh, you're down to 30 seconds.
6:44 according to my watch, 6:44 according to my, 6:45. All right, we're going to end our public hearing recess. I'd like to thank council and the public for participating tonight. Unless there's any other further questions or comments on the Queen Creek Greenway concept plan, is there any questions from the public, staff, or the council? Hearing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
There's a motion by Councilmember Armitage with a second by Councilmember Aguilar. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries, and the public hearing is adjourned at 6:45 p.m. Thank you. We will reconvene at 7 p.m.
Start our regular meeting.
We'll start our regular meeting. So.